Okay, today's episode is called Confessions of a Christian Propaganda Artist, and that artist in question is me. Now, if you've watched episodes of my show, there's going to be a lot that you may have heard before. I've talked before about how I'm a writer, and I'd like to talk about a time in my past where I was essentially a mouthpiece of a certain type of Christian culture. This is a time where I was a senior skit writer for a college-age Christian group, and you're going to hear more about that right after this. Okay, I guess the story begins properly in 1990 when I first joined this church called Living Faith Fellowship, still in Pullman, Washington. And if you're not familiar with Pullman, Washington, you should know it's the home of Washington State University and the famous Cougars. It was while attending WSU where I was starting to attend Living Faith Fellowship, or LFF. Now, I've already done an entire 3-part episode about my troubles there, so just watch Season 1, Episode 10, if you want to see more of that. Okay, when I graduated college in 1994, something very bad happened to me, and I go into greater detail about that in yet another episode, Season 1, Episode 7. Yeah, you really need to like and subscribe if you really want to know about this. It's like watching your favorite streaming show from a middle episode rather than its first episode. Really. Anyway, so when I graduated from WSU in 1994, Living Faith Fellowship was building this bigger building, essentially an expansion to their church building, and I decided to stay around for that. And this just wasn't all the LFF people just kind of waiting around for a construction crew to make the new church so we can move in, but they really wanted to throw our hands in. So oftentimes, actually, I think every day for like at least a year, a lot of us were working at our jobs, and then in the evening time we would go down to the church and help build it. Even though most of the construction people did a lot of the heavy lifting and stuff like that we really couldn't do, still we were doing just a little work every once in a while when we could. So at the time I was just out of college, and I really had to rely on temp jobs or jobs that I knew were going to end eventually, just to pay the rent and the bills. And it was followed by hours at night doing this construction work at Living Faith Fellowship. And not only was I working long days, I was really actively contributing to the college evangelism program, even though I wasn't in college anymore. And I have to admit, I really have to say that I really love this time, because, you know, sometimes when you stay busy, you start feeling like your life is kind of, it has meaning there, and it kind of does. And plus, I was also getting to know some great people on the LFF construction site. And one of those was a woman who became my wife, so hey, can't complain about that. This is, of course, just my nostalgia glasses on. Now, I think I've talked about this in another video, and I'm not going to give a reference here this time. But my mind is always creating. It's always writing stories, and it always wants to write them down. And sometimes it can, and sometimes it does, and sometimes it just can't. But I never really had a place where I could consistently create new content to an audience waiting for it before. Okay, that all changed back in '94 as I was attending this college-age group known as Campus Christian Fellowship, or CCF. And at the time, a typical weekly meeting of CCF had a typical format. I have no idea if it still has this format, but think of it like Saturday Night Live. Saturday Night Live has not changed its format for like at least 49 years or something like that. If you look at how like the sketches and the news program and the musical guests are organized, I think nothing really much has changed there. So for CCF, I think there was like an intro by the pastor, senior pastor, or one of the senior pastors, Pastor Phil, the evangelist pastor at the time. And then there'd be some sort of icebreaker type game. I don't really know how to describe this, but essentially they'd pass around these little sheets of paper with a little puzzle on them or something like that. And the first person that could do the puzzle would win. There was something like that where you got in a group of people and you got to know people around you. That's what the purpose of the icebreaker was. Then there was worship, just singing and stuff like that. Pastor Phil would speak. And then there's usually a skit to illustrate what type of message he was doing. And once the skit was ended, he'd wrap it up, and there was usually a song to go along with it to sort of really bring home the theme for the night. And if you're not familiar with any Christian organization, the goal of any Christian group is to get you saved. This idea that they're going to lead you to Jesus kind of thing. That's how Christianity does work in at least the United States. At this time, I was just sort of, it's sort of an interesting place when you get out of college, because that's really when your life is really starting to begin. And I figured that I had to do something. I felt like I had talents and I wanted to be involved. So I figured maybe I'm always good at writing these stories in my head and stuff like that. So maybe I could use my talents to create for CCF. So one day I brought up this idea based on Star Trek and shared it with the CCF leader at the time. He liked the idea, so I wrote up a script, and that was not difficult. You see, I actually had the Star Trek idea 4 years before I even the sketch was performed. Because this is kind of going to get complicated here. After I became a Christian, I began to rethink what I would want to write. And there were a lot of ideas that I had that were based on kind of superheroes and other sci-fi elements that I really got the feeling like a lot of Christian people would kind of frown on that. So when it comes to Star Trek, if you're not familiar with it, Star Trek does have a very humanistic point of view. It really downplays religion, pretty contrary to what the Christian message is. Alright, so I'll go ahead and play the results, and you're going to see a lot of skits in this part, and a lot of them have the same intro, so, well, you know what, you can probably figure out that I posted these like daily on TikTok and YouTube. So, and they have my commentary in them. Now there's a way to look at it without my commentary on CCF 90s Skit Nostalgia, but I think I put that in there so many times that it's crazy. Anyway, so let's roll the first sketch. If you happen to find this video while scrolling, listen carefully. My name is Mark Rollins, and about 25 to 30 years ago, I wrote skits for a college-age group. These sketches were videotaped, and I put them on YouTube site known as a CCF 90s Skits Nostalgia. You can go there and watch them without the commentary if you like. Be warned, there's a lot of evangelical stuff going on there, not to mention some serious cringe. I'm doing an episode of The Geek Church, the show, dealing with this topic at the end of April, but I want to comment on this creation. Okay, so this is a sketch based on Star Trek, and yeah, I had this idea for this sketch years ago because I grew up kind of a Star Trek fan. And when you become a born-again Christian, a lot of the stuff you see on Star Trek doesn't really mesh very well with it. If you know anything about Star Trek, they tend to have a very, I wouldn't say anti-religious slant, but they have a very humanistic sort of point of view. And I kind of wanted to discuss that in this sketch. And the whole reason why this sketch was even done was because I just wanted to do a funny sketch dealing with this thing. I basically just sort of copied the stuff that I used to see on like Saturday Night Live and stuff. Anyway, so I think the sketch was supposed to be about death, and the CCF that it was doing this sketch was called The Final Frontier. And I remember pitching this to one of the CCF coordinators, the guy who was playing Spock there on the left. And and then I wrote like, I don't know, a 4-page script on this and sent it to him, and he really liked it. So they did it. That's me in the front as Chekhov on the computer there in the red shirt, not the actual red shirt, we'll get to that. As far as who's doing the voice of Scotty, that is Pastor Phil, who I talked about at length on another video I did, and yeah, but I won't get into that now. I don't want to say anything bad about these people in the sketch because honestly, I can't really say that. For when I did skits like this, most of the time, these people did their job and they did it really well. By the way, that one Boldly Go Where No Man's Gone Before, I stole from Mad Magazine, okay? I admit it, I did. Like this guy who's doing like McCoy is really putting his all into it, and I just love it. And then there's Spock there, and everybody's just loving him with the ears and stuff, and the, oh my gosh. sometimes I can't believe this set actually, this stage that we had church in and that we did this thing, actually looks a lot like the Star Trek set because it's just so full of blue and stuff like that. And if you think Star Trek, the original series, you think a lot of blue. The guy who's playing Kirk here, his actual name is Kirk, so that kind of fit. I kind of wanted him to do like a William Shatner impersonation, but I never really could get that out of him. And that's fine. I mean, hey, not everyone can do that. He does this one line that never really worked. It's supposed to be a parody of the Mariah Carey song "So Emotional," but it never really worked. I don't really think I don't remember if I ever tried to explain it to him to try and sell it. But yeah. Oh yeah, and then here's where we get to the point about the Star Trek Federation's humanistic prime directive. You can see pretty much where this is going, and if you've already seen, I make fun of a lot of Star Trek conventions in this thing, and even back then, making fun of Star Trek conventions was pretty much old school. And this one lady who plays Uhura, oh my gosh, is doing such a good job. And when she says, "busted my butt," apparently the audience busts a gut because apparently I guess that was kind of racy or something. But as you can tell, that was ad-lib. That is not in the script. We had no idea how to respond to that. And as you can see, even Kirk had to turn his chair away just to keep himself from laughing. And poor Spock. I feel sorry for the actor that had to play him because, you know, he has to be an emotionless guy, and yet here he is cracking up because, you know, we're all kind of turning our heads. And there is a definite like impromptu feeling for this sketch because believe it or not, the script for the sketch is on the floor. I know you can't really see it, but as I recall, we didn't really have a lot of time to rehearse this thing, and so I think we did like one rehearsal, and that was kind of it. That was generally the standard procedure for when I did CCF. And now I'm about to do my Chekhov accent. And yeah, I know. He's a real winner for that. So, oh yeah, this thing that he's looking at, you know, that Spock always has looked at that thing and had a blue light in his eyes or something like that. I think that's like an Arby's bag. I'm serious. That's the fun part about doing these sketches. You never knew what would be turned into a prop or anything like that. That's always kind of the fun part about doing this stuff. That's one of the reasons why I like doing this. I don't know, there was always kind of that, what do you call it, just kind of like guerrilla type stuff when they made it. And, oh yeah, this particular scene here where the alien beams aboard. I guess that's supposed to be a transporter there with those little streamer things. Yeah, and then of course we do this thing that Star Trek used to do all the time where they just kind of would shake around and shake the camera, but there's never camera to shake or anything like that. Kind of think the guy that's playing the alien here kind of came in too early for the thing, but you know, and he's wearing this cowboy outfit for some reason. I don't know. Star Trek would do that. They would often have stuff like this, and they'd kind of mix in for costumes that they do. And oh yeah, and then we get to our red shirt joke, which honestly, I mean, again, that would have been done to death. And this sketch was done in like 1994. I don't think Star Trek Generations had come out yet, and so, and I kind of went by the original series rules, and I don't know, you can do a lot of fun stuff with the original series. Kind of always wanted to do like a Star Trek The Next Generation parody, but never did get around to that. But this is so hysterical with just the McCoy actor just sort of doing this weird kind of thing where he just kind of waves this thing over the body. I think it's just hysterical. I don't know why little subtle things like that just really work, and it's just the fun part about doing this thing. By the way, I was told like when this sketch was done, I was told people were rolling in the aisles laughing. Now, I didn't really see that, but I don't know. After this sketch was done, I was pretty much promoted to the sketch writer on this thing because people love this so darn much, and I can kind of see that. I like that. No, I'm a doctor, not an actor line. Honestly, I think I stole that from I think a David Letterman thing. Boy, I'm stealing all the jokes, aren't I? Then again, like I said, making fun of the Star Trek conventions was, I mean, that was not new back in the 1994, and it is nowadays you couldn't really do this because it's already been done before. So, I have no idea where the sound for the Vulcan mind meld came from. I think it's just some guy just kind of making noises in a microphone. It would not surprise me. I do like how Spock's over-the-top laugh reaction kind of works really well. Oh boy. So, I don't know. And once again, Christian cringe, but hey, what are you gonna get? Oh, this phaser joke always really worked. That's supposed to be like, get it? It's a razor? Yeah. Yeah. So, like the guy playing Sulu, by the way. In fact, he makes the noise. I don't know why. It's just like, that's a taboo buzzer. Yeah, you guessed right. So, I know, that's just crazy how that happens. And again, we just have these dumb little prompts we have there. Look at all those old school computers we used for the background there. So, I don't know. And then we finally get to the meat of this thing after all the comedy's done. Because that's usually what happened. So, if things usually had a format like that. Again, the McCoy actor is just really overdoing it. It works so well. Yeah. And we got to get the Bible verse in there. So, yeah.
And if you do not wish to be found guilty,
well, so it gets kind of quiet here. Yeah, skits would always usually have a quiet moment there.
Well, I've heard enough. You can leave now. Whoever you are.
Now this thing that he does where he repeats Bones, I actually think that this actor here, Kirk, just forgot his line, and so he just kind of kept repeating it.
He speaks some truth.
So, anyway, I guess it was just kind of a way for me and my mindset to kind of justify Christianity and Star Trek at the same time with this kind of plot line. But I don't know. I think people really thought this was like the shiz back then, and I was actually super surprised here. Speaking of being surprised, remember this sound effect was put in here that sounds like somebody in the audience was kind of impressed that we had that sound effect. I have no idea where we got that sound effect.
How do you get to the final frontier?
Okay, I think that's what's really funny is at the time, I wasn't really watching Star Trek. That is, I didn't really allow myself to watch Star Trek. I'll try and explain why, and this is where it gets kind of complicated. You see, the church that I went to, LFF, had this very particular policy about having a personal relationship with Jesus. They kind of wanted you to spend time with him, not just in prayer, but like write down what you believe God is saying to you. And at the time, I thought I was hearing from God that I shouldn't be watching Star Trek. So I literally stopped watching it for a few years. And this included the year that I wrote that sketch. So yeah, crazy. Anyway, that skit was a huge hit, and usually there's a lot of laughter during the sketch, but don't get me wrong, there had been funny skits at CCF before, and I remember laughing at them quite a lot. However, I had a lot of people telling me afterwards that people were just rolling in the aisles at this one, and apparently this skit was taking it to the next level. At least that's what I felt I was being told, and it was really only the beginning. Not only that, after that skit, I actually remember sitting with a guy and helped lead him to the Lord with the help of the guy that played Sulu in that Star Trek sketch. If you're not familiar with leading someone to the Lord, this is what Christianity wants from you, as I've said before, to make this personal pledge. Some call it the sinner's prayer. It's basically a way of making sure you're part of the club. And at that moment when I did that, I thought that it was like, oh my gosh, I have arrived at something like that. I've done something here. I'm starting something. Something beautiful was happening. And I felt like, wow, I'm actually a part of this. Okay, not only that, Pastor Phil, who was the host of CCF every week back then, who played Scotty in that Star Trek sketch that you just saw, or at least the voice of it, you didn't really get to see him, was very, very super pleased. And at the time, making the evangelist pastor, one of the senior pastors at LFF, Pastor Phil, very happy, really boosted my ego, I can tell you that much. So needless to say, people got word that I wrote that skit, and before I knew it, many people were just crediting me for the skits before I was even made head writer. Now during this time, skits were done a bit differently at CCF, rarely with a prepared script. Usually it was just one person kind of taking the lead and then kind of working with the cast that we had that week just to sort of create a short story to illustrate the message. There was a lot of synergy going on. There's nothing wrong with creating something like that. I actually think that does work out pretty well. And for me, I just really like just sitting down and figuring out things, just writing a script. But eventually it's sort of like, I think the format at the time was like, usually there was not really a copy of the message that Pastor Phil was going to talk about. It was usually just, he had this idea of what he was talking about, and then you just sort of created a skit that you thought would go along with it. That's kind of how it was done then, and it was done when I became the skit writer. So yeah. So once I did the Star Trek sketch, they asked me to work with the skit team to do another one, and I pretty much did that for about a year. And there was once again a skit that was discussing the need to be saved. And it was a chance for me to tap into my geek culture. And with another fine IP from our pop culture zeitgeist. Am I using those terms correctly? I have no idea. Anyway, this is one I did. Actually, it's two for the price of one. And this was, I think, the first time they did a skit, and they thought it went off so well that they demanded a sequel. So you're going to get two for the price of one with these. Okay, if you happen to want to find this video while you're doom scrolling, my name's Mark Rollins, and about 25 to 30 years ago, I wrote skits for a college-age group that was a Christian group. And these skits were videotaped, and I posted them on YouTube on a site known as CCF 90s Skits Nostalgia on YouTube. You can go there and you can watch this without the commentary if you want to hear that. Be warned, there's a lot of evangelical stuff going on here, not to mention some serious cringe. Christian cringe. So I'm doing an episode of The Geek Church, the show at the end of April, where I'm kind of compiling all this stuff together in an episode titled Confessions of a Christian Propaganda Artist. And I'm going to talk about these particular creations and the fun that I had going into them, and some of the lessons learned, I will say. In case you saw the titles that I wrote on here, this is a sketch with Batman, although Batman does not appear until quite late in this one. But don't worry, you're going to get two skits for the price of one. Yeah. And so that's going to be good. Now, basically, the premise of this sketch is that somebody is having a hard time paying their taxes. I realize that it's tax season, being the beginning of April. And yeah, I think we just kind of went with this. Because unlike the last sketch that I did, the Star Trek one, in case you missed that one, you can catch it. This one actually was just sort of, I think the cast kind of got together and we just basically just said, hey, what kind of sketch we want to do? And then for an idea, someone brought out, the basic thing is that this guy can't pay his taxes, so someone has to pay it for him. And this is kind of like this is a very common Christian message about how we owe a debt that we can't pay, and Christ paid that debt, and of course we wanted some sort of superhero to come and save him, and somebody just suggested Batman, and we just kind of took it from there. And the guy who plays this character, Thad, I mean, that is his real name, and honestly, he is Jim Carrey. I swear, his mannerisms, the way he talked, it's just like Jim Carrey. It just happened to be like that. He did it before Jim Carrey did it, so I'm told. Some people are just like that. And here's our costumes here with our Batman and Robin. Yeah, something you'll notice about Batman's costume is it's a kid's costume, at least at the top of it is. And what's funny is he has the bat on the front of him and on the back of his cape, which is something I don't think any Batman in any movie or comic book has ever had. I think the costume designer was sort of modeling after Superman and just kind of went with that direction. So yeah. So as you can see, we're modeling after the Adam West Batman here because why not? At the time, this was done, I think, in 1995, so I don't think Batman Forever had been released. So most people knew who Batman was, of course, because of the Tim Burton movies. And, yeah. Boy, geez, Batman's kind of grown throughout the years. This is just 30 years ago? So, anyway, so this is just kind of this whole thing where, I mean, Batman has just sort of put it in as afterthought in this sketch, I really have to admit. Yeah, I like the fact he has a green Gideons on his belt. And this line from Robin is great. No, gosh, that is hysterical. I'm sorry. That's pure comedy gold. Now this next sketch I got from Saturday Night Live. Once again, I'm stealing a joke. I like this idea of everybody turning their head to do that wall crawling scene that was very common in the 60s version of Batman. You can obviously tell that this is this part here where they're trying to get the rope is goofed up, but honestly it makes it work. So I'm not really sure how they were supposed to do this. I don't know how much we rehearsed this. And of course we do this little thing here. And I actually found that a lot of people in the audience did turn their head. You can actually see them. If I didn't cut this off when I'm doing the transfer, you can actually see people turning their head to make this stunt work. I don't believe it, but that did happen. So, oh yeah, and of course we end with the traditional cliffhanger ending, like in the original show. You're probably going to just be disappointed that this doesn't ever really get resolved, though. So, hey. And on to the next sketch. Yeah, we didn't resolve that thing, just like I said. So here's Batman and Robin coming back to the Batcave, and this I think was just, we were setting up for like an Easter production, so we probably had some props from that. So that's probably supposed to be Jesus' tomb or something. Yeah, I know, crazy stuff. I know, and look at this, and do this posing. And then it starts out with the most 90s thing ever, Hakuna Matata. It was 1995, Lion King was just released to VHS. Yeah, and he has to make this joke about him getting a tan because Robin was not white. We would not make that joke today, I can tell you that much. So, I don't know. Anyway, this time we did not really plan to have a sequel to this thing. It just sort of, I was basically told, like, hey, we need to bring Batman and Robin back. And I think I was just like, okay, let's come up with a situation for them. And then, so it basically gave me a chance to think about the old 60s series and all the conventions on them. For example, the fact that in the Batcave, they always had these big computers with big labels saying what they were, and depending on what the episode needed, they often had a label on them. So the fact he moves it here is kind of funny, but unfortunately the joke gets removed. And here you have the Joker being the villain, just because. And at the time, there was really only two Jokers. There was the Cesar Romero and the Jack Nicholson version. Looks like this guy's kind of going for more the Cesar Romero kind of thing. But what can you say? Jeez, it's hard to believe that in 30 years the Joker's just been in this weird kind of sort of complex character here. Oh yeah, then he makes up this Thad rhyme, which which didn't really, didn't really work here. But hey, this sketch is just meant to be kind of really fun. Don't hit a woman. It's pretty funny. I don't know if you can even see this joke here, but this is where they do the fight scene with the traditional onomatopoeias that they pull up there. One of the signs actually says burp, and then the next sign says excuse me. You probably missed that if you didn't. I think I kind of thought of that one. Yeah, and then you do this paralyzing thing with the... Oh my gosh. This is like a really bad reference to the Chia Pet. And, oh my gosh, do I even have to explain what that is? Just look that up. I mean, I think that's just kind of now in our modern day consciousness. So, yeah. Yes, man. Oh, boy. Yeah, there's a lot of awkward microphone stuff going on here. And there's, I don't know how many times we really practiced this. Probably only once if we did that. We have guns on stage. I don't think we would... I don't know, I just don't really think we would have done that now. Crazy stuff. Okay, now this is really actually funny, because the guy playing Batman actually owns a golf course now. I just realized that. Talking about this. Kind of funny how this stuff happens. Man. Anyway, so notice how the Joker just kind of stands on stage really awkwardly and doesn't really have much direction here. He's just kind of just waiting to do his lines. That's kind of sad. But, yeah, I don't know. I kind of think it's funny seeing Batman and Robin kind of frozen in place, and they kind of have to do this sort of thing. Oh, boy. So, this is where it just gets kind of weird, because, like I said, this is a college-age Christian group, and at the time, there was Mom's Weekend, and at WSU, I think it's called Parents' Weekend now, because I don't really think they specify the gender on that, so... And this is a pretty, I must admit, this is a pretty weak ending, but, hey man, what else are you going to do? I'm just going to say that. And of course we end with the narration, because No, shoot. Actually, the second episode of the Batman series on the Adam West show never really ended with narration. So, hey, what are we going to do? Anyway, so I hope you enjoyed that. That's just plain fun, really. Now, I'm sure you're probably thinking that most of these sketches are parody. And if you watch all 6 parts of this little show I'm doing, episode, the majority of these skits are. You've probably realized that I've been posting them all throughout the month of April, 1 per day on TikTok and YouTube, but I've said that already. I did this other sketch based on The Princess Bride, but I have to admit it didn't really feel like I really wrote that one. Again, it was kind of done in a fashion where I kind of met it as a team, figured out what to do, and the guy playing Wesley really did all the heavy lifting as far as the dialogue was concerned. I think he was my roommate at the time, so we probably worked on the dialogue together, maybe. There's going to be a lot of skits I wrote that you don't see, which is a shame. In a typical semester, we usually had about 12 to 13 CCF meetings, and they're usually about 2 semesters per year. So that's like 26. So that's like a full episode of what a full season of what television used to be, with about 24 or 23 episodes. It didn't really become, so I didn't really become the full-time or even part-time skit writer until September of 1995. But just before that, we did this skit based on a very old game show. Okay, hopefully you know the drill by now. Mark Rollins, these are skits I wrote 25, 30 years ago for a college-age Christian group. And they're on a YouTube channel called CCF 90s Skits Nostalgia. You can go and watch them if you don't want to hear my commentary. A lot of evangelical cringe on it. And and of course, this is all going to be part of an episode I'm doing at the end of the month. Now, this particular one is called Truth or Consequences. But if you actually look at this sketch, it's not really based on that game show Truth or Consequences. It's actually based on a show called To Tell the Truth. I think somehow we got our wires crossed while doing this sketch. But honestly, I have no idea what the rules of the game show Truth or Consequences are, so I was willing to go with this. And this is one of those sketches that I kind of wrote because essentially, this is back when we were doing skits, we all got together and then we would just kind of have some synergy and then come up with something. And something like this is a pretty easy format. All you have to do is just think of a few situations that come up and then and then just kind of take it from there. So, as you can see, maybe you don't know, the guy all the way to the right, that's me. And, and basically, I'm kind of this, honestly, I'm not really certain. I'm not even, this is one of those situations where it's like, when you come up with these ideas, you just sort of make this happen, and, so I don't even think I even know what I'm really supposed to be here, and I think that's the joke. Basically, this is like a game show, and I just sort of wander on stage and pretend like I'm a contestant. I can't help but feel like there should be more of a backstory here, but I'm kind of glad there isn't, honestly. This feels like a sketch that Saturday Night Live would do, probably in its early iterations, but honestly, Saturday Night Live would probably do something like this now. I don't know. They're always pretty good at doing stuff like that. And I've said before how much Saturday Night Live has influenced me, and So as far as this whole thing is concerned and how we thought this up, these stories that these characters are telling are real. Like they actually did this. And so I remember when we did this, we were rehearsing how they would tell this story and who would be lying and whatever. And I had to just sort of come up with a line there. And that's kind of how I did that. Now, I'm not saying I came up with that line right on stage. We had a rehearsal. And during the rehearsal, I just would sort of okay, what can I say here? And I put this in here. And I'm going to say this. I have mixed feelings watching this thing. I don't know if you know this. I probably have mentioned this before. I'm on the autism spectrum. So basically, growing up, I was kind of considered kind of a nerdy guy, kind of this sort of thing. And if you look at my performance and look at the way I laugh, I'm trying to obviously imitate the character George McFly from Back to the Future. But honestly, I think I'm coming off more like Tom Cruise. Maybe it's the hair. I don't know why. Anyway, actually, that's just sort of my interpretation there. Yeah, I'm probably probably boosting my ego saying I'm like Tom Cruise, but hey, what can I say? Hey, think of any Tom Cruise impersonation. I think you get some guy kind of like this. Anyway, so it's kind of weird that this character I'm playing has to be the butt of this joke, and is also kind of like just kind of there. I will say something for the guy who's playing this host of this show. Boy, he's really giving his all. I mean, remember this guy? He's a great guy, and I was always glad to have him in skits because I always felt he gave his all in his energy. So yeah. So yeah, man. Anyway, so yeah. So that was basically the premise of this thing. So not only is it not Truth or Consequences, it's some other game show. Hey, I gotta say one thing, at least it's real. And now I'm going to talk about some serious trauma. Now, yeah, okay, that's not really funny, is it? That somebody would run me over like that, but hey, it's a sketch, you can go with that. People can laugh at my pain if they like. Anyway. Okay, now here is the strangest thing that we never predicted about this sketch. When they're asking the audience who is lying, every single time they would say me. And I was just going like, this happened every time. I don't know why this is. This is just something you couldn't plan on. We could not figure out why the heck somebody would just pick me every time. And I mean, I'm the one who's most obviously lying, and that these people are saying like number 4 is telling the truth. It's like, what? Oh, come on. Yeah. So I mean, this is kind of crazy. Okay, coming up here, I have a joke that I don't honestly get. I think basically just like I came up with this. All right. What is this? Rated me on a curve. What the heck does that mean? I have no idea what that. I mean, I guess the non sequitur is kind of the joke there. I don't even. It's kind of funny when I was watching this. I realized that I didn't get this joke. So yeah. Yeah. Once again, number 4. So I can see, and it's so funny that the guy playing this host has to just sort of like play along with this thing, and it's kind of funny. You can see his frustration, but at the same time, he's doing a good job being a good sport about it. I love when this one lady says she got 100% of her driver's test. You can hear somebody in the audience going, "No way!" Okay, and now we're gonna get to the winner for tonight, and okay, this lady who's doing this, who's tallying up the scores. Honestly, I really like this joke that she has this hesitation, and then she's really trying hard to do this. Kind of makes fun of the ditzy game show host. I don't know. I always thought that was a funny joke. I can't remember if we scripted that or if that's something that they did on the fly. And honestly, it's still pretty funny. So, okay. So this is where it kind of gets a little awkward in the sketch, but because I think the topic of tonight with Truth or Consequences was about telling the truth and being a person of integrity. But here's the thing. This sketch does not illustrate this very well at all. And because the person who is telling the most lies, me, doesn't get consequences. Seriously. I know that's kind of a spoiler. Now, I remember that working with the person who used to be on skits for the time at CCF, they were really big at pie in the face. For some reason, I felt like this would happen a lot in sketches where people would get pies in the faces. I don't know who thinks a pie in the face is pretty funny. I never really did. I think I did a sketch one time. I don't have that on tape where I got a pie in the face, and it's not this one. And the way the pie, I think it was just sitting on a counter somewhere, so all the whipped cream had turned into pretty much almost water by that time. And so by the time I got hit in the face, it was a huge mess. It was just like So honestly, when we do pies in the face, I'm going like, yeah, you better have somebody there to shampoo the carpet after it's over, because, dude. Oh, yeah. So anyway, so I don't know. You can hear the audience kind of stop laughing when the pie's happen, but 'cause I don't really think that's a really funny gag. But hey, anyway, that's that sketch. Okay, now there were 2 skits after this I did that I wish I had on tape. By the way, all the skits were taped by, you know what, I really don't know who did it, honestly, but we did have one guy who was really good at video and who would put them on tape, and I used to watch them constantly when I wanted to be entertained. And something I did at the end of the year at CCF, I would just take all the skits and I put them all on one tape, and which was very handy because at the time I was going to a church that didn't really recommend that we watch film or TV or anything from the secular world. So having my own films to watch when I wanted to just sit down and be entertained was kind of a healthy alternative. Anyway, it was after we did this American Gladiator skit, which was the last skit of the year. Pastor Phil asked me to be the skit writer at the end of that. And I was pretty thrilled. And I had sort of made plans to stay in Pullman. After all, we had just built this big old church there, and yeah, I think at the time that church was going to open like at the end of that summer, so we were still in the older building. Now granted, so I had already planned on that, and essentially LFF was a mega church wannabe, and we thought there was going to be a revival. This is a big buzzword you hear around Christian culture, where I think it's believed that everybody's just going to start to wanting to become a Christian and stuff like that, and yeah, so I believe that not only the present CCF audience would see my skits, but I believed it would grow big, and so more people would be seeing my works. And I was very excited about this idea of this, and helping people get saved, and helping out Pastor Phil with these skits I was doing. And people thought I was good at it, so hey. Okay, so we did, I did this one sketch that was awesome. It was used time travel, and I really wish I had even a still photo to show of it. But best of all, it didn't really satirize any, movie or TV show. It was doing its own thing. And there was one that was a satire of American Gladiators, and I have to admit, if I had that episode in front of me, I'd have a hard time watching it, because there was one person in it who I know passed away the following year after we did that sketch. Yeah, so these are essentially lost to media, like tears in the rain. Okay, so that was a pretty interesting summer I remember having, where I think I just got this, kind of got a more permanent job, and but I was also flying back and forth from coming home to going to the church site to build on that, and then we eventually moved into that new worship center. And that's when I wrote this particular sketch for the very first CCF of that year, and the very first CCF that was in that building. That may be the first skit that was ever done ever in that building. Probably not, but hey. Okay, as I mentioned before, these are skits that I wrote about 25 to 30 years ago for a Christian college group, and the videotapes. You can find them on the YouTube site known as CCF 90s Skit Nostalgia. If you want to watch this without commentary, be warned, a lot of evangelical cringe. And basically at the end of this month, I'm going to compile this all together and talk about my experiences as a skit writer there for a particular episode. Anyway, this is, of course, Charlie Brown. And honestly, I love doing this sketch because I love Charlie Brown and the whole Peanuts gang, and I'll say it, I know it sounds like another word, but yeah, basically, I don't know, I just thought this was their first sketch that we did in our new building, because at the time, this church I was going to, Living Faith Fellowship, had just constructed this new big facility. And this was the first CCF we had there. And so I guess I wanted to knock it out of the park with this sketch, and I think I kind of did, honestly. So here's the deal with Charlie Brown. You either know it or you don't. And the one thing I discovered is that most people usually have a knowledge of this, but I read a lot of Charlie Brown growing up, so I felt I kind of really understood this character. The thing about Charlie Brown that a lot of people kind of, I think, really get wrong is Charlie Brown is not an everyman character. He's a very specific type of character. And I have to admit, the person who's playing Charlie Brown isn't really like Charlie Brown, but still does a pretty good job. I mean, and one of the things I liked about this sketch is the thing about the Charlie Brown characters is we never saw them grow up. We have no idea what they're like, and I just kind of like went out of my way to kind of create this thing. And now I've actually heard that there's a play where somebody made the Charlie Brown characters grow up, and it was like a really dark view of them. And I don't think that's really good. We got Snoopy in here, but if you're a big Snoopy fan, you're not going to see much of him here. He's kind of just doing that. And yeah, we had to do the effect where he sleeps on top of the doghouse, because why wouldn't you do that? That's, I think, a real doghouse, and I think we screwed like a board on top of that so he could do that effect. And then we covered that with construction paper. A lot of the props in this thing were really homemade. Like some of the shirts, I think I made with like a lot of electrical tape, like Charlie Brown's little characteristic zigzag. You kind of got to get that there. And so, yeah, and as I recall, since this building was under construction, there was a lot of just stuff lying around. And, yeah, so I must have used so much construction tape on just that shirt alone and some others that we never even used. I think I tried one for Peppermint Patty and Linus and never really made it, but honestly, I kind of like that. Some of these characters would still wear the same thing, and some of them just wouldn't. I just thought, okay, that worked out really well. Sometimes it's this. Oh yeah, she mentions Billy and Jeffrey from the Family Circus. This is like some sort of Funny Pages University. It's like a Sunday Funnies connected universe. I was really ahead of its time. Oh yeah. Okay. Oh, by the way, this is kind of a little joke amongst the thing with if you've ever read the comic, Peppermint Patty didn't know that Snoopy was like not a kid. I just kind of made fun of that. So a lot of people that don't know that, they just kind of make up stuff here. By the way, I kind of did that little Woodstock there. We actually had somebody in that doghouse to bring out Woodstock, and so we could do that little line. And I found out they stayed in that doghouse after the sketch was over. And by the time we removed it from the stage to do a musical number or something like that, they were still in that doghouse for like, I don't know, like a half hour while Pastor Phil talked on stage here. Here's Schroeder, the guy that always played Beethoven on that little piano all the time perfectly. Yeah, I kind of like the idea of making Schroeder like this guy who has abandoned his old musical pursuits for the sake of modern day stuff. I actually kind of think that's an interesting take on the character. This is one character on the Peanuts who never really got much development, honestly. So, I don't know. I just kind of added him on there, just cause. So yeah, I don't know. And I always liked it when we had this actor. He was really good about throwing himself in the role. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, there's a reference to Dennis the Menace and Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes. Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of Calvin and Hobbes on like the internet, period. Okay, then we finally get Lucy in here. Now, the thing is, when I did this, when I wrote the script for this, and yeah, this is one of those where we didn't all get together and come up with lines. I wrote the script and basically, told everyone what to do. But the thing is that I didn't like about this is the people who were approving the cast and they wanted rewrites, the rewrites they wanted were really terrible. What they did is they cast this person whose real name is Sally because I think they thought the character was Sally from the comic strip and not Lucy. Now Lucy and Sally are like two different characters, and I couldn't figure out how did they get that wrong. And I don't know. It's like those people that mix up Star Wars and Star Trek. It's just like that. I mean, it's like if you grew up with it and you know this stuff, then you know it. So it's weird when I saw that happen. And I think I took the rewrites and I simply just rewrote them back to however the way it was. By the way, I really like the line about the whole football and the fact that he stopped falling for that when he was a sophomore in high school. I always liked that line. So, and I really like this whole thing with the whole psychologist thing. That was always kind of one of my favorite things about Charlie Brown and Lucy's relationship is the fact that Lucy had that thing. It really made a lot of sense to me, but yeah. Okay, so now, as typical as my sketches, once we get the comedy out of the way, we got to get the message involved. And yeah, I say that with a little bit of derision because this last part, I had to admit, was kind of weird. But hey, that odd thing. Never could get them to say that right, but if you've watched enough Peanuts on television, you know that sound they used to make. So here Charlie Brown calls his father, and if you don't get it, this father is supposed to be his father God, and for some reason talks like all the adults in Peanuts. I think it's funny that Charlie Brown talks back with that language. I think that was just a last-minute addition, which I don't really think really works, but hey, I don't know. I'm not really sure what point we're trying to make. But I think the point I'm trying to make is like, hey, if you have a choice to make, you got to go to God to have God make that choice for you, which is a little bit problematic. But yeah, I'll get to that when I talk about this in the episode. Hey, hope you enjoyed the sketch. And I will end with the funny dancing because Charlie Brown, why not? Still love it. Okay, now the way CCF was planned out at the beginning of the semester, or at least the subjects of the week are planned out, and I have no idea who did that. Remember how I said that Pastor Phil didn't really tell us what he would talk about, like specifically? It's not like he had pages, which honestly he probably wrote them like probably the week of that, or maybe even the night before of it, or maybe even the afternoon before it, I don't know. So sometimes all I had was a title, and I remember the title I had for this Charlie Brown one was called like A Fork in the Road, The Power of Choosing. And that's what you saw with, from that, Charlie Brown. I guess that's just kind of where it came out with. So there was this procedure where I'd pitch about 3 ideas for a skit, and then the CCF team would pick one. And usually I would think about what I'd write about as a skit or illustration for the subject. And I usually came up with one idea that I felt like very strongly about, and I pitched that one first. Like I sent them a list, and like number 1 would be like the idea that I knew I could probably make work. And then I'd usually have some other idea after that, the number 2 idea that I thought, okay, I could probably make this work because it's a secondary idea. And then because, I don't know, I like things that begin that are in 3s, I basically just said, okay, there's this idea that we could do, but I haven't really developed it or anything like that. Just like, here it is. And sometimes they would take the idea that I was least excited about. Like I remember one time I pitched this idea based on Godzilla, because in 1998 there was a film version of that, and it was called God's Willa, and had God like going, and I thought like, okay, this is great, this idea. And they picked this one that I think was called the Flaminator. It was just something I just came up with just because I could. It was based on the Terminator, and the thing is, the Flaminator sketch actually turned out to be pretty good. Unfortunately, I don't have that on tape because I think we did that outside at a bonfire or something like that. Real good one, but hey. Anyway, so I would write a skit based on their selection, and they would occasionally send it back to me with rewrites, or they'd give me some 2 cents or something. They would just usually say like, okay, we like it, but, like this. Kind of like pitching a television pilot. There's a lot of TV shows that start out with something that's completely different than what you ever watched, but that's because they redid the whole thing. And that's fine. Sometimes you got to do that. So I have to admit that all these skits that you saw before, like Star Trek, Batman, and the Charlie Brown one, they're pretty easy to write. All you have to do is like look at the original material and then just kind of come up with some satire way of doing it, and a Christian-y way of doing it, because you got to get that message in. And what I really liked was coming up with something completely original, which I started doing. Just take a funny concept and run with it. And this is how I came up with this particular one. Okay, I'm going to try to do the intro really quick. Basically, this is a sketch I wrote like 25 to 30 years ago. It's for a college-age Christian group. They're on the YouTube channel known as CCF's 90s Skits Nostalgia. You can watch it there if you don't want to hear my commentary. Going to be a lot of evangelical stuff here, and I'm planning on compiling these for a single episode of The Geek Church, the show, coming up at the end of April. Now, this is a sketch that I really liked because the concept is very simple. If we've taken a flight, we've all had to go through this kind of thing. And just to let you know, this is before 9/11, so there's no TSA, there's nothing like that there. It's basically you just walk through this little thing, and that gets there. Now, a lot of people misunderstood this, the message of this sketch. A lot of people thought like you've got to leave all this stuff behind if you want to go to heaven, and I can see why they get that idea. But honestly, the reason why I like this sketch so much is because even if you don't apply it to anything godly and it's completely secularized, its message still works. I think there are things that just drag us behind, and I think it's a good idea to leave them behind. And I really think that was kind of the point of that. Because here's the thing: the way that they did CCF skits, they would basically just approve a message on them, and then everything around what happened at CCF was based around that message. Christian people are very big on morals and making sure that the moral is told, and sometimes it gets really buried in the ground. And in this case, where do I begin? The CCF was very big about this concept called lordship, this idea that once you give your life to Christ, you give up everything, and it was a little bit too big on that. And I think I've mentioned this before when I've talked about this stuff before in a different episode, and it's something I'll probably talk to when I finally get to the episode of this proper. Yeah. So this is a pretty fun bit where some guy's trying to smuggle in a bottle of beer with this thing, and the thing keeps coming off. And I always like this thing that he was trying to hide it, and the way he acts when he gets found out is just hysterical. Oh my gosh. Well, once again, I loved having this guy in the sketch, and I love having this guy on the right here too. He was a really great guy, and always glad to have him. So I love that thing where he goes, "I love you, man." Yeah, that's a reference to like a beer commercial ad campaign. That was Bud Light, I think. Man, so that obviously shows its time. So now I think it's pretty telling that for changing his attitude, what we have him is changing his hat around. That's a little bit oversimplified, I think. So, but hey. Okay. This last one was at the gal that I used to work with sketches a lot. So, in fact, after a while, she really helped assist me on several of these sketches that you're going to see in the next few years or a few days. And I really like the way she's acting on this. And I like the fact that he has a little wand. He has this kind of thing. And I kind of like the way this actor's going about it. It's very professional.
We just broke up.
Man, you can leave that behind.
I definitely like that idea. You can leave that behind. I think there's kind of a tenderness to this, and definitely something, actually I actually really like this sketch. I think this has worked through time. So, yeah.
Enjoy your flight, man.
Now, I think this actor has a line where he says, "All I see is your excess baggage," and I can't help but think that should be funny if you interpret that a different way, but it's played so seriously, no one laughs at that line. I think that's kind of awesome, really. Now, this bit, I don't know what to even think of it, but I don't know, it kind of works. This little thing where they all lean back in their seats as if they're taking off in a plane. Oh my gosh. All right. Yeah, I personally think this is just such a great sketch because it's just such a simple concept and doesn't require you knowing any source material that it's parroting, because it's really doing its own thing. And I really love doing these more than the parodies. It's harder, it's more challenging, but I think at the end the result is much better than something that's just some copy of original IP. And this is something that I think I don't want to get into this, but I mean, I think we all know that our movies and our television shows, they're all based on some existing IP, and it's getting really annoying because it's like, I want to see something new. I want to see something. What are you giving me that's This is what keeps me watching television and movies, is because I want to see something new. I want to see even though it might be a message I've heard before. Yeah. Anyway, speaking of IP, there was one IP I wanted to do, and I was finally given a chance to go to a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.